Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Coach Red, where we bring you all the news stories, takes, and opinions about your favorite teams from the Pacific Northwest, from the good to the bad to the sweeping Mariners.
The Sweeping Mariners!
Jeez Louise, how my ears hurt. The Mariners.
Welcome.
What can you say? Good series against the Reds, a quality team, a good young team off to a hot start, and the Mariners kind of buzzsawed them. But
Also, hold on, before we even get to the next part, I just want a little appreciation for Mitch Garver because he finally hit his first home run, but we're not talking about that today. Hey, I wanted some shout outs because it's a glorious day.
yep, Mitch Carver finally did something. Yippity frickin' do. Just kidding. All right, but we are 1 week and 1 day away from the start of the new NFL year, ringing in with the NFL draft. So we are going with a mock draft Wednesday once again. And in this mock draft, we will be doing it back. It's not funny this time around. It's a little bit more serious. No trades being made. And with this, we did a lot of player fit, position fit. If there wasn't an obvious need or not a high rated player, I went there with the highest rated player at the most pressing need based on their roster construction. And this one's it's going to be a little bit different than the ones have been in the past. Some moving and shaking, and your Seattle Seahawks have a new pick at 16. But before we get to 16, why don't I tell you a little bit about us? If you're looking for a guy that loves the draft so much that he takes it off as a holiday every single year. That's right. Thursday and Friday of the NFL draft is a holiday for me, your boy, Coach Red. You can find me on X at The Real Coach Red, on Instagram at The Real _ Coach Red, TikTok at The Real Coach Red. Also, find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, and leave a comment or two. If you are looking for a guy who's finally starting to adopt the holiday of NFL draft, he's a first time, long time here on the show. First long time contributor, first time celebrator of the holiday. His name is Kane.
Yes, I am Kane. You can find me over on Twitter at Kane2406, on YouTube at Kane06, TikTok Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. False. Do it, freaking do it.
Do freaking do it is right. All right, let's do the damn thing. And
yeah.
Bum, 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 bada, bum, bum, bum.
Mock Draft Beanie is back
with the first overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. The Chicago Bears select
Caleb Williams, quarterback, USC. Nice Roger Goodell impression.
USC what?
Trojans.
Oh,
I
Trojans.
didn't. You know what? I
Trojans.
Oh, you know,
this is also going to be fun. New caveat.
I don't know some of these.
Oh,
so
you're going to find out.
I guess you're going to have to tell me.
So I'll tell you about Caleb Williams. This set it, forget it. He's been seen as the number one quarterback prospect. He's probably one of the more pro-ready guys out of this group too.
You've seen it all on tape is one of the most important things. He can make throws. The one thing that I see is he does struggle in big moments, especially in this last year.
He plays a little too much hero ball, but
yeah,
he does save your bacon. He's got athleticism. He can run with the football, but contrary to former Chicago Bears quarterback Justin Fields, he's not a run-first guy.
He's more of a pocket first guy, kind of improviser type of role.
Extend the play, a little less Josh Allen, a little bit more Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and the
Russell
biggest
Wilson in his heyday on trying to create.
Yeah, and one big thing for me is how tall he is, right? Seeing over those giant linemen, he's going to be able to see his targets. And that's a huge thing for me too. It's going to be a big part of this Chicago team who went out and did a whole lot, not had to give up their other first round pick in doing so. and this team is going to look a whole lot different with Caleb Williams at the helm.
Yep, agreed. All right. With the second pick, the Washington Commanders select
Jaden Daniels, quarterback, the LSU Tigers.
really warming up on the Jaden Daniels train. Watched him at ASU, watched his tape at LSU, and he's another guy that doesn't play the biggest in big moments, but he does give you a little bit more dual threat. We talked about it in the past with them signing Marcus Mariota to be the backup. That kind of leans me to Jaden Daniels as being the most mobile RPO type guy in this draft. He's a more polished version of Anthony Richardson that went to the Colts at 4 last year. So I think this is a good fit. And when you really look at it, you want to control the game. Dan Quinn is a defensive head coach. Keeping your defense off the field and controlling time of possession, I think, is big. And I think that Jane Daniels can really help with that, with his ability to extend. It's going to be interesting to see because he doesn't have the 1-2 punch like he had with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, but he does have Jahan Dotson and Scary Terry. So it'll be interesting to see how it translates. But I think that Jane Daniels is a good fit for this team. And really, RG3 2.0, second pick. Wow. The parallels, they're crazy. With the third overall pick, the New England Patriots select
Drake May, quarterback, North Carolina Tar Heels.
Little bit less athletic. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Josh Allen, but without the physical freak of a runner. He's got the tools, he's got the arm strength. And the one thing that he really struggled with, especially this year, was just lack of weapons, right? You saw this with Sam Howell. Sam Howell, in his biggest year at UNC, had a bevy of players. He had Javonte Williams in the backfield. He had Josh Downs. He had other players that I'm escaping right now. But what you saw him struggle a little bit the year after because you lose those guys. Drake May did have a year with Josh Downs, and then you saw this year the numbers weren't super high because they weren't being able to get enough of those prime time recruits at the playmaker positions. One thing that I do think hurts you a little bit here is the Patriots have done not the best job. They've tried to throw volume at the pass catcher position instead of quality. You know, it's quantity over quality for them. And they do have some interesting and fun pieces in the wide receiver room, but they do not have a quarterback. So, best quarterback available here at pick number 3.
The craziest thing about Drake May, in my opinion, is he is the most silent number 3 pick I've ever seen. I have not heard a single peep about him this year, about him last year, even though he was in the Heisman stuff. Didn't hear a peep about him last year or this year. So it just boggles my mind to some point where it's like, how is that as a person that, like, most of the other people on here got attention on this list? And I feel like Drake May was just the most silent out of them all, and consensus number 2, number 3 pick all year.
Yep. You're correct. It's true.
I don't hear that very often.
I know. All right. With the 4th overall pick, the Arizona Cardinals select
Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver, Ohio State Buckeyes.
With Marvin Harrison Jr., him being the Blitnikoff winner, the NFL bloodlines, I think, is what's going to keep him as the first wide receiver drafted. There's a guy that I think is nipping at his heels that is proclaiming he is the number 1 wide receiver in this NFL draft, and that is my boy Roma Dunze from the University of Washington. He has come out and said that this week. But I do think that with the Cardinals, it is very important that they go and get a playmaker on offense because that is an area that they are lacking.
Yeah, I mean, they let Hollywood walk, traded DeAndre Hopkins. They have guys on second-year deals who were just very limited players last year. They need somebody to make a bang, especially with everything surrounding Kyler Murray and stuff. This needs to be a saving grace pick. And I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. just put on a clinic this year, and just any year he's healthy, he is a star. And I think you're going to really see that. You're getting a guy who is again tall, has almost total body control, and can almost make any catch in his radius. Like the dude's insane, and they're gonna get a huge weapon. Hopefully, not to win any games against the Seahawks, but it's going to be a huge weapon for the Cardinals this year, especially since they have another second or a first round pick in this draft too. See where they go.
With the 5th overall pick, the LA Chargers select
Roma Dunze, wide receiver, Washington Huskies.
I told you that Roma Dunze was never not going to be my second wide receiver pick. Who knows? In the last pick, he might move his way into the number 1 spot. We will wait and see. But with the number crunch that Jim Harbaugh and company have with the Chargers, they had to let go of Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. So you've got Quentin Johnson and Joshua Palmer as your 1-2 punch, and that does not instill fear to anyone. Roma Dunze is probably the best 50-50 ball catcher in this draft class. He's got the body type. I even saw on ESPN they had his best pro comp as Jamar Chase. And to give Justin Herbert a weapon like Roma Dunze, I'm not even going to compare him to Jamar Chase because he's his own man. And I love every second of Roma Dunze. I think, especially with this team, you're going to see them focus on the run because that's what Harbaugh's do is focus on the run. But Dunze is just a special player, even with limited touches, and his ability to find holes in the screen game, I think will really elevate this offense, and he will quickly become a favorite of Justin Herbert.
I agree with that. And just the biggest comp I've seen, and it was kind of early on in the process and all that I saw to Roma Dunze was Devonta Adams. And watching them, if you pull them off side by side, kind of look identical. uh, Devonta Adams was feared for most years in this league, and especially when he had a good quarterback thrown to him, Aaron Rodgers. I think Justin Herbert is a very good quarterback, and if you add to that team a Roma Dunze, everybody's career is going to skyrocket.
Yep. With the 6th pick in the NFL mock draft, the New York Giants select
Malik Neighbors, wide receiver, LSU Tigers.
We complete our run of 3 quarterbacks followed by 3 wide receivers. A fun little tidbit here. Malik Neighbors, I think, is easily wide receiver 3. One of the bigger positions of need that I see for the Giants is wide receiver. He's another guy that fits their mold in smaller type shifty wide receivers. He's not the small list, but a little bit bigger, a little bit more playmaking ability, and he has a knack for finding the end zone. So I think when you couple all that together, I think it's a fun fit for them. I also kind of looked at tackle, but I didn't think because they've spent first round picks in the last couple of drafts, last 3. They've spent 2 of those 3 on a tackle. So I decided to go with a wide receiver to help complement Drew Lock's led Giants. With the 7th overall pick, the Tennessee Titans select
Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback, Toledo.
the Toledo Rockets. Yeah, of course, Quinyon Mitchell.
There you go.
The Titans were not a fun team to draft for in this spot. I think that they've got good enough pieces at tackle where I didn't want to go tackle. They have good enough pieces in the wide receiver game with what they've done. They have good enough pieces at certain positions. Where I really would have liked to seen them go is potentially D tackle. I thought this was a little bit early. So I decided to go with Quinyon Mitchell. It is a position need in the cornerback position, and he's a guy that I think is going to be the first cornerback hearing his name called. And I think this is a fun fit for this team. It was the funnest fit I could find.
Like it.
With the 8th overall pick, the Atlanta Falcons select
Carry-on Arnold, cornerback, Alabama.
Crimson Tide nailed it. With this pick, the two holes that I kind of see with this team is depth at the wide receiver position. Yes, they've got Kyle Pitts. Yes, they have um, Drake London. But there wasn't a guy that I felt comfortable slotting in at pick 8. Terrion Arnold, I think, is going to be in a battle for that top cornerback spot. They need another quarterback to play opposite of AJ Terrell with this team. So I like the fit. And with them really going getting Kirk Cousins, I think that really changes the outlook for this team in what has proven to be a little bit more wide open NFC South in the last couple of years. And I think it's going to be a dogfight down there. But I think with this pick and potentially picking up a wide receiver later in the draft in rounds 2 and round 3, maybe like Jalen McMillan would be a phenomenal pick to pair on this team with London, because he's just that security blanket that makes you feel nice and warm. I think that the Falcons could be a team on the rise with what they've done on the offseason and going getting a top corner to go with that defense.
Agree with that.
With the 9th overall pick, the Chicago Bears select
Joe Alt, tackle, Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
With this pick, it was just kind of, it fell to him, and they were starting Braxton Jones at left tackle as a former 5th-round pick. Yes, I would like another wide receiver to go on this team, but when you have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen now, and with what is more likely seeing in the Kuiper, McShay, a lot of mocks as you see Roma Dunze sliding to 9. I think he's going to work his way up, and he's not going to be there. Joe Alt is the clear-cut number 1 left tackle in this, and they do have a hole at left tackle. I would prefer a guy that I pick at 9 over a guy that I selected a year or two ago in the 5th round. Right. The biggest thing for Caleb Williams is giving him time in the pocket. This Bears offensive line has proven over the totality of Justin Fields' career that they have not been able to keep a clean pocket. So give Caleb Williams as good of a chance to succeed. They already helped that out with going and getting a Keenan Allen to pair with DJ Moore. So let's fortify that offensive line.
Agreed. It's one thing that this team hasn't had is good tackle play, and he's best tackle available.
Yep. They do have Darnell Wright that they drafted in the 1st round last year, but he's slotted in on the right side. And I think Joe Alt gives you 2 back-end tackles that are both on rookie deals and should really grow into the position in the NFL. With the 10th overall pick, the New York Jets select
Kylise Fuaga, tackle out of Oregon State, the Beavers.
This has been a spot where we've looked at tackle or tight end pretty heavy for this team. But I do think tackle is kind of the biggest one. Aaron Rodgers made it a grand total of 3 plays last year. Their offensive line has been a problem. They had been starting the ghost of Dwayne Brown at left tackle. Their Mekhi Becton hasn't panned out like they have expected. And George Fant, who was also brought in to be a guy, didn't really pan out for them either. Go ahead and give me Fuaga, who is a solid piece and I think is going to be a phenomenal tackle in the draft. Fortify the lines. That's where I think that you will see this really pan out for them. With the 11th overall pick, the Minnesota Vikings select
J.J. McCarthy, quarterback, Michigan Wolverines.
I will preface this with saying, I think I've said it in everyone, the Vikings will not select twice in the 1st round. They are trading these picks to move up to go get a quarterback. They're not going in with Sam Darnold as their starter. Not going to happen. Luckily, the teams that were right ahead of them after that quarterback run didn't need a quarterback. So quarterback JJ McCarthy slides to them in this draft, although he's not my favorite guy. And I think that you need a good complementary team to him, especially a good running game, which I think that they're really going to need to work on at some point in this draft. JJ McCarthy has tools to be that guy. I do not think that he is that guy, but I think that they might think that he's that guy. There's a lot of teams that think that will think he's that guy, and I think that he is going to cost a GM his job. But with the way the boards have looked out there, he is the guy that slots in at 3 or 4. So you find him here to the Vikings at pick 11.
Which is also one of the most wild things. Just show me the thing.
Yep. With the 12th overall pick, the Denver Broncos select
Latu, edge, UCLA Bruins.
This is another team that I saw some rumors that said they're willing to couple their first round pick and Patrick Surtain to move up to get a quarterback. I did not want to give them Bo Nix. And here's the other thing. I don't want Michael Penix Jr. to go there. So I didn't do that. One area that they are lacking is at the edge position. It's not great for this team. Latu is a beast of an edge rusher. He's got a quick first step. He's got good bend. And I think that keeping this defense strong, they felt confident enough while they were still somewhat in playoff potential to sit Russell Wilson and play Jarrett Stidham. So I think that, yes, get Stidham here, maybe try and get a guy in the second round, or potentially go get a Spencer Rattler type guy in the third round to learn under Sean Payton for a year and potentially take over for Stidham down the line. But this team has got a lot of holes, man, and it's not like their wide receiving core is super deep. So if I'm really trying to revamp this team, I'm not going to give up my top defensive player and a pick to move up the boards to get a quarterback that is not really being put into a position to succeed.
Like it's a dumpster.
You have to
fire.
know when you need to make your move for quarterback. You can't do it too soon. Yes, if you are drafting higher in the draft order and they're, are generational talents, you take them high because that's what you do. But you don't reach when you think your window is too soon. Yes, you might think that within the next 5-year span you can get there, but this team is in a tough division. The Raiders have gotten better. The Chargers had a down year, but they have also got a new head coach in town that has a proclivity for winning. And you've got the 2-time Super Bowl champs in this division. Like, do not make mistakes and try to reach too soon.
Yeah, that would be the worst decision. As you said, this team is not put together on offense. I believe they just have Courtland Sutton right now. As
correct, and Javonte Williams.
Yeah, their defense has been bad. Their secondary
it was
good.
not it was not bad that last year. They had one terrible game, and the rest of it they were very good.
Their secondary is good, but they've also traded all of their.
They cut Justin Simmons, and if they move up the board and trade Pat Surtain, their defensive backs are not good anymore.
I guess there's just nobody on this team. They're bad.
It's not looking good, but maybe this next team will look good. Why don't we get to the pick? With the 13th overall pick, the Las Vegas Raiders select
Michael Penix Jr., quarterback, Washington Huskies.
I don't even know if Penix will be here. I think that there might be some teams that are moving up. The biggest question mark with him, outside of his medicals, was his athletic ability. And he squashed a lot of those concerns with running 4.56 40 or sub 4.6 4.59 maybe, and 35 36 inch vert. Like, Michael Penix is a baller. And when you look at a team that I do think is ready to make that next step, you have Davante Adams on this team, right?
Yeah.
Your defense got a lot better when you brought in Christian Wilkins as well. And I feel better about their line than I did going into last year. So bring Michael Penix in here, distributor supreme, big arm. That's a guy that can link up with Davante Adams on the regular and really legitimately push, if I think he goes to the Raiders, push for rookie of the year, because I sure as heck know that he's going to beat out Aiden O'Connell.
Yes, I agree with that. And your boy and
Mm-hmm.
Uncle Rico. Is he going to be
Sorry,
our Uncle Rico?
sorry, Uncle Rico. Michael Penix's too strong. He's got that. He's got that. He's got that BPE. He's got that big Penix energy, baby. All right. With the 14th pick, the New Orleans Saints select
Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver, LSU Tigers.
there's a handful of wide receivers that could go in this range. And I do think that the Saints direly need another wide receiver. They do have Chris Olave. Raheem Shaheed, I think, is their next best guy, but that room is just full of guys that haven't panned out in the NFL. So go ahead and get me a guy that was very productive at LSU. Go ahead and keep him in the area. Save me on those moving costs,
Yeah.
right? Let's
Yeah.
do it. But I do think that this is a good fit for team and player.
Like it.
With the 15th overall pick, the Indianapolis Colts select
Olumuyiwa Fashanu, Penn State.
the Nittany Lions.
Thanks.
This is a team where they have invested in the line, but one of their projected starting tackles, I think, is Bernard Raymond, who was a guy out of North Dakota State, about a third or fourth round pick. Fashanu was one of those guys who I think could be in the mix for he's one of the top three tackles for me. And I do think that this is a Colts team with how they're currently constructed. I didn't like that next round of wide receivers yet. They're a team that I think could use another wide receiver. They do have Michael Pittman. They do have Alec Pierce. They could, and they have Josh
And Josh
Downs.
Downs.
I mean, they're solid, but they're all relatively young. Michael Pittman has emerged as a leader in the clubhouse. But I do think that there are guys they can get a little bit later because I think this is a very deep wide receiver class. Go ahead and fortify that line because you are going to see a lot of RPOs with Anthony Richardson. And you have Quentin Nelson. Play this guy next to Quentin Nelson and just start grating on that left hand side. Open it up lanes for Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Yes.
With the 16th overall pick, your Seattle Seahawks select
Brock Bowers, tight end, Georgia Bulldogs.
In our previous mocks, he has not been available at this pick. I do think that the Seahawks most likely will trade back out of this spot unless there's someone that they love. You could look at the defensive tackles and Byron Murphy and Jerzon Newton, aka Johnny Newton. We've often mocked Troy Fantanu, but with the signing of Laken Tomlinson, I think that decreases that. You do not have Noah Fant on a long-term deal. It's a 2-year deal. And then you brought in Farrell Brown. Brock Bowers is a guy that can step into this team. And when you look at how well Brian Grubb utilizes positions and matchups, Brock Bowers is a matchup nightmare. He can
Yes.
block his tail off, and he's the most complete tight end. I won't say he's the best pass catching tight end that's come out because you have Kyle Pitts that was that offensive weapon that can also play tight end. But this dude reminds me a lot of George Kittle or Rob Gronkowski, willing to mix it up in the middle, but also has great hands. And he's just a beast of a man. I saw him do a backflip yesterday at he's at 240, 250 pounds, 6'3, 6'4, just popping backflips. The dude's a freak athlete. Go ahead
That's
and
insane.
go and put him on Seattle Seahawks. See what this offense can do, baby. With the 17th overall pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars select
Jerzon Newton, defensive tackle, Illinois.
When I look at the Jaguars, they're a team that has been teetering on the cusp of being good. You know, they made the playoffs 2 years ago, just missed out last year. They went and got, I believe it was Eric Armstead was the guy that was let go by the 49ers and signs with them. They've spent early round picks in Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker to get after the quarterback from the outside. Jerzon Newton, for me, is probably the best penetrator out of the defensive tackle position. I felt good enough about what they had at wide receiver. I felt good enough about their line to not try and bring it in here. I tried to get really cute and go potentially Troy Fantanu here to start him at guard and potentially push Cam Robinson off of this team because I think Cam Robinson is not very good at the left tackle position. But with Troy Fantanu being a little undersized, I figured they could go get a guy later that could be a little bit more of a development. So go ahead and get me more attacking guys on this defense. Their cornerback room was something that I kind of looked at, but I just didn't feel comfortable going there. So I went with let's get after the quarterback. Let's do pressure over coverage and hope that that creates turnovers for this team. With the 18th overall pick, the Cincinnati Bengals select
Byron Murphy II, defensive tackle, Texas Longhorns.
And this is another guy that is probably the top overall defensive tackle in the group. I think he's the most well-rounded. Yes, he is stouter against the run than Newton, which I think that the Bengals need. They had DJ Reader in this spot when they made their Super Bowl run, and I think he was a key piece to this team. I think that Byron Murphy can anchor the middle. Then you've got Sam Hubbard and Hendrickson on the outside. And I think that this could be a really fun pairing here. What I will say is with T. Higgins not happy about the franchise tag, you could potentially see in the week leading up to draft, kind of like you saw with Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs got moved for a first round pick, to the Vikings.
He did. Oh, two. Okay.
The pick went to the Vikings when he went to the Bills, and the Vikings use that pick on Justin Jefferson. If they do trade T. Higgins for a first round pick, then I think that they will be selecting a wide receiver just like the Vikings did.
Fair.
With the 19th overall pick, the Los Angeles Rams select
Jared Versey, edge, Florida State Seminoles.
With the top two defensive tackles off the board, which I think is a big position of need with the announcement of Aaron Donald retiring, I went with the versatile edge defender. I think that Jared Versey could end up being one of the best edge defenders out of this group. He never really lit up the stat sheets at Florida State, but the peripherals are there. Like he's got big time talent, and you've seen what edge rushers can do in coming to LA. You looked at Leonard Floyd, you looked at Von Miller during that Super Bowl run a couple years back. This is a team, the Sean McVay, that has not had a first round pick ever in his tenure with this team. The last first round pick that the Rams had was used on Jared Goff at the first overall pick. It's the first round they've had since then. So go ahead and get me just a great value pick. Their edge rushers don't look amazing on paper. I think Jared Versey really ups that group right away.
All right.
With the 20th overall pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select
Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver, Texas Longhorns.
Whether it's Russell Wilson, whether it's Justin Fields, them trading Deontay Johnson off this team really leaves a void and leaves you wanting more at the wide receiver room. Adonai Mitchell, best pro comp I have for him is George Pickens. Put them both on the same team. I mean, these guys are both big, long, athletic, can make plays down the field. And it's what George Pickens does really well. And I don't know if you know this, but if Russell Wilson is the starter, he throws a darn good deep ball still.
He does.
And Pickens is going to be the beneficiary of that. And I think Adonai Mitchell would as well. With the 21st overall pick, the Miami Dolphins select
J.C. Latham, tackle, Alabama Crimson Tide.
Austin Jackson has been an overall disappointment for me. I think that J.C. Latham has played some right tackle in college. So I think you can really push Austin Jackson off this team. I also thought about interior offensive line, but like that enough where Jackson has been a disappointment over the course of his tenure with the Dolphins. Go ahead and get me a guy that profiles to start right when he gets into the NFL. With the 22nd overall pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select
Cooper DeJean, cornerback, Iowa.
This is a team that needs help in the secondary. They bring back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Cooper DeJean can play safety, slot corner, and outside corner. And their outside corners were a little bit rough last year. James Bradbury didn't play up to where he was. Big play Slay wasn't necessarily playing at the highest level either. You've got Keely Ringo on this team as another young athletic guy that they got, I believe, in the second or third round last year. Cooper DeJean is a stud. The biggest knock on him is the health because he was injured to end the year. But this is a guy that plays in a team at Iowa that was born and bred to play defense because they couldn't score any points. So that defense had to ball out, and Cooper DeJean was a big factor in that. So go ahead and give me a defensive playmaker for a Philadelphia Eagles team that really struggled down the stretch due to their defensive play down the stretch. With the 23rd overall pick, the Minnesota Vikings select
Dallas Turner, edge, Alabama Crimson Tide.
This is a guy that we have had going earlier in drafts. Like I said before, the Vikings will not be making this pick, but they do have a hole at edge. Danielle Hunter is no longer on this team. Their edge play is not great. This is a team that does have some key holes, except for the wide receiver position and the tight end position. So go ahead and get me a big time edge player to go get after the quarterback for this Vikings team. With the 24th overall pick, the Dallas Cowboys select
Troy Fan Nuke, tackle, Washington Huskies.
Big hole for them. I mean, there's a handful, but there wasn't good value at this spot. I'd like them to go get another wide receiver. Didn't love that for them, right? But I need them to get a running back, but I'm not taking a running back in the first round with the players that we've got in this. Troy Fant would slot in to make this Cowboys line great again. So whatever running back you select later to pair with the likes of Royce Freeman and Deuce Vaughn, they can go find some holes because you've got Tyron Smith on the left side, and then you throw in Troy Fant right next to him.
Right. Okay.
With the 25th overall pick, the Green Bay Packers select
Amarius Mims, tackle, Georgia Bulldogs.
With Amarius Mims, I really think that you get a guy that can go fill that David Bakhtiari hole. And with the emergence of Jordan Love and how they played in the playoffs last year, kind of being that surprise team in the playoffs, I think that anchoring this line a little bit more is key for them. They have lost some playmakers on defense, but I want to give Jordan Love as much support as you can. And one of the big ones is making sure he stays upright. So Amarius Mims is the top tackle that I've got on the board at this point. So set it and forget it. Welcome to the Packers. With the 26th overall pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select
Jackson Powers Johnson, center, 40 Ducks.
There's been some rumblings down the stretch that maybe he's losing some ground to Zach Frazier out of West Virginia as the top center in this class. But when I looked at the Buccaneers, their interior offensive line was all right, but their center position was just a glaring hole, and they had no depth. Jackson Powers Johnson can go in and start on this team right away, give Baker Mayfield a good companion to go with, fresh off his new deal, and really kind of go for that title in this wide open NFC South. They won it last year. Let's fortify that line so they can try to make a push to win it again. With the 27th overall pick, the Arizona Cardinals select
Nate Wiggins, cornerback, Clemson Tigers.
The most pro-ready cornerback that I saw available at this spot. They addressed an offensive playmaker. Another area of weakness for this team is cornerback play. And when you look at Gannon being the head coach here, he really got a lot out of that Eagles defense when he was the defensive coordinator there. And I think his defense played pretty well last year, all things considered. I do think that they could use more ability to take the ball away. And I think Nate Wiggins profiles as a guy that is going to be very stout in his rookie year. Go ahead and put him on a team with a young emerging head coach. I think they've played with a lot of grit. I just want to raise that floor with talented players on this team at positions of need. With the 28th overall pick, the Buffalo Bills select
Xavier Worthy, wide receiver, Texas Longhorns.
the speed burner supreme. If you're looking for a guy that can throw a ball a country mile, that is Josh Allen. And when you look at Gabe Davis signing with the Jacksonville Jaguars and them trading Stephon Diggs to the Houston Texans, there is surely a need here. This is a team that I think might be looking to move up into the middle of the round before that next second round wide receivers go to get the guy that they want, because they're a team that you have a team that has made the playoffs consistently but has not taken that next step and made it to a Super Bowl. You have an emerging superstar in Josh Allen. You need to make sure that he has guys to throw to outside of his tight end rooms. Tight end room's great, but I need to get more guys in that wide receiver room, especially in the first round. Go give me a guy with a unique skill, which is blazing fast speed. With the 29th overall pick, the Detroit Lions select
Kool-Aid McKinstry, quarterback, Alabama Crimson Tide.
one area that I could see the Lions improving is in the cornerback game. And Kool-Aid McKinstry is toolsy. He doesn't always play with the most sound technique, but playing under Aaron Glenn, former DB himself, you've seen this team really take steps forward in that area. I think that with Kool-Aid McKinstry, it might be a little bit slow burn like Keely Ringo, maybe not starting as your cornerback week one, but working his way into a starting role because he has a high ceiling. He also has the highest, one of the higher floors of this team because of his inconsistency in play, but the tools and physicality that he has makes him an intriguing prospect to select at 29 here. With the 30th overall pick, the Baltimore Ravens select
Ennis Rakestraw Jr., cornerback, Missouri.
Tigers.
There's so many teams that have Tigers in it. Jeez.
Yeah. This is a guy that's really been moving up. He was a guy that I've seen in first round mock drafts or very high in the second round. This Ravens team does not have very many holes. There wasn't a good fit for me wide receiver wise for this team because they do like some yak guys, and they already have that in Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers. And I did not feel comfortable in a team that doesn't really utilize the passing game going back to back years with first round picks on wide receiver. Go ahead and give me someone to go along with this defense. Marlon Humphreys is still playing very good football, but he's not going to be around forever. I can't remember who was on their other side, but it was not a name that really jumped out at me like, okay, they can't upgrade at this position.
Mm-hmm.
2 picks left. With pick 31, the San Francisco 49ers select
Graham Barton, tackle, the Duke Blue Devils.
He's a guy that profiles a little bit more on the interior, which I think when you look at this team, they've got Aaron Banks and John Feliciano penciled in at starters at the guard position. I think that's where he's going to start. I think he has the ability to grow into a tackle. I think that this guy can beat out John Feliciano. He has not played good football over the course of his career. A backup spot is probably better suited for him. And this is a guy that you hope down the road can potentially take over for Trent Williams at your left tackle. I didn't feel confident enough because I think Colt McKivitz is their right tackle right now, and he signed an extension. I don't know how long Trent Williams is going to play, but investing a first round pick on a true tackle that most likely sit on a team that is very close to being in cap purgatory, I didn't love. If I'm taking someone in the first round for the 49ers, I need them to contribute immediately. And I think that you have a better chance of doing that at guard right now than you do at tackle.
Yeah.
With the 32nd overall pick, the Kansas City Chiefs select
Jordan Morgan, tackle, Arizona Wildcats.
their left tackle situation is not good right now. I know that there's a lot of people that have been mocking a wide receiver here, especially with the news of Rashee Rice coming out as well. What legal trouble and ramifications are going to come from that will yet to be seen. But they did go get Hollywood Brown, and they pieced it together enough with some guys. And like I said, this is a deep wide receiver class. You can find guys with traits that you want to add to your wide receiver room down in this draft in the second and third rounds. I mean, I'd already talked about Jalen McMillan. Let's just say in the Pac-12, you got Troy Franklin out of Oregon, you got Jalen Polk out of Washington, you got Xavier Leggett, who I think is going to sneak into the second round. There are a lot of good time players at the wide receiver position. It's harder to find starting tackles the further you go down in the draft, especially ones that can start. You need to protect Patrick Mahomes at all costs because he is your ticket to the Super Bowl year in, year out. So, with that being said, we will go ahead and get him a left tackle to complement this team. We have one more mock draft left before we get to the NFL draft. That'll be next Wednesday. So hopefully you enjoyed this. But you know what we would enjoy? A follow on social media, of course. You can find me, your boy Coach Red, on X at the Real Coach Red, on Instagram at the Real _ Coach Red, TikTok at the Real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Hit the bell notifications, like, heck, even subscribe. Leave a comment or two. Kane, where you at?
You find me over on Twitter at Kane2406, on YouTube at Kane06, TikTok Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. False, false, false. Do freaking do it.
And as always, stay fresh.
Stay fresh, peeps.
Peace.